Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about sentence structure. Ba-da! So, in different types of sentences, actually. So, remember we talked before about complex sentences? Well, I want to bring in a few new types of sentences that can really help you out with your IELTS. So, the idea is to understand how to use these sentence types to get a band 7 or above. And yeah, we're going to look a little bit at passive and conditional sentences, mainly complex, passive, conditional. So let's go straight ahead and take a look. So this is just a reminder really of why this is important. So this is one of the key mark scheme areas. There are 4, but grammar, range and accuracy is one of them. So let's take a look at, I don't want to spend too much of your time on this, but this is really important to get a band 7. I could do the IELTS tomorrow and I could get a band 6. I could be clear, I could have a good accent, I could use great vocabulary, I could have perfect fluency. But if I don't use complex sentences or a range of different sentence types, I can't really get past a band 6 or a band 7. So, even with the band 6, you need to use those complex structures, right? Those complex sentences, but you can do that with limited flexibility. So this means you probably understand how to use one. I don't know, maybe you know although. And in the exam, you repeat although 7 times. But you did use that complex sentence. Although I like chocolate, I also like blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, limited flexibility. The idea is to do exactly the same, have a range of these complex structures, but with flexibility. This is important. So, you can use although, you can use while, you can use even though, and you do it naturally. This is super important to get that band 7 and anything above. Cool. Let me get rid of that and we will go down here. So this is just a reminder of the different sentence types. We already spoke about some of these. We spoke about simple, composite. Those ones you already know. There's no problem with those. So we don't really need to worry about those. They are in the bank. You know how to use questions, right? You know how to make a question, so that is good. What I would like to focus on is the complex and the passive, and also conditionals. This is a great way to get a nice, I think we talked about this in one of the classes before. It was, if I had to talk about a person that's really important to me, I would choose my mum or my boss or Cristiano Ronaldo. So this is a conditional. Let's go down and, so we know what a simple question is, right? Simple question, blah, simple sentence. I don't want to spend too much time here, but when we identify, well, what is a sentence? The minimum for a sentence is to have a subject and a verb. So you need to know how to identify these in your own writing so that you can understand, well, what type of sentence is this? This is the most important information in a sentence, the subject and the verb, and you need to be able to identify it. So yeah, simple, we already know, right? Compound, we've talked about that before. Nothing too complicated, maybe it's a little bit difficult with nor. But this is stuff you know, right? And we can identify, we know it's a compound because we have 2 different ideas and we have a subject and a verb and a subject and a verb. That's how we know we have 2 sentences, or they're technically called clauses, but we don't need to remember that specific vocabulary. So let's move on to those complex. A reminder, these are the connecting ones with although, even though, and again, they connect 1 or more ideas. Sorry, yeah, they always connect a minimum of 2 different ideas. Okay, this one here is just intended to be a reminder of the passive. So I've written down some examples there. He is needed when it's busy. I'm paid every month. So here you use the past participle, which is often the ed form of the verb. Not always. So he was required, for example, you could say, or what else could we say for a passive one? He was spoken to by his boss. Spoken is the past participle. It's whatever we use to make a sentence where we have an auxiliary verb. So I have spoken, or let's say I have needed. I don't know why some are in capitals and some are in smaller, but whatever. I have paid. So how can we identify if something is the correct form, the past participle? Well, this is what we use in the present perfect. So after have, say, maybe you remember this from learning English a long time ago, maybe in school or something. This is when I have been to America. I have been to Istanbul, or this sort of thing. This is just a way to identify the past participle. This is a great way to improve your grammar range in the exam. And it's quite easy, you already know how to do this. So it's just a case of identifying that and using it more. And in this class, I should have said earlier on, actually, this is the writing. So we're talking about the writing here. I'm going to check that I'm still recording on my phone. Hey, good, perfect. Okay, awesome. So, and conditionals. Now, I've just included a little bit of a refresher, a reminder to what a conditional is. Remember, you have 0, the first, the second, the third conditional, right? Here, I just have the unreal conditional. So you might want to, if you don't feel confident with conditionals, it might be good to just revise them. It's very important that you identify this part of the sentence where you have if and the result clause. So we call this is the if clause, and this here is the result clause. So it's important grammatically to separate the two and to know that in the result clause you will usually have will or would. And in the if clause you will usually have the present or the past, depending on whether you're talking about something that is real or not. So if it rains tomorrow, it will be wet. But if I had $1 million, will this happen, do you think? I mean, I don't think so. If I had $1 million, I would buy a huge house. This is the unreal conditional here. Okay, so just a little refresher. I don't want to spend too much time focusing on these grammar sort of reminders. You probably remember these from school or from a language institute or something. So it might just be useful for you to revise some of those if you don't feel strong in those areas. Okay, let's move on to the main activity here, at least for the class, and I'll move my head over here. So here, I want you to actually pause the video in a moment, and these two these two paragraphs say exactly the same thing. But I want you to choose which is more advanced, and really importantly, why. Think about the sentence structures, identify the subject and the verb. What type of sentences are being used? So pause the video here. Okay, so I think you have your answer, but let's look at the real answer. It's interesting to see if it's the same or not. So this one is actually more advanced. Maybe you guessed that. If you did, great. And think about why. So how many subjects and how many verbs do we have in here? So how many different clauses. What type of sentence do we have? So here we have blah, blah, we have a that wasn't a very good drawing. We have a subject and a verb. Here we have a subject and a verb. Here we have a subject and a verb. Also, yeah, here we have a verb, but it shares the same subject as it. Okay, subject and a verb, blah, 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 blah. Subject and a verb. Luckily, I was given, so subject and a verb. To study by my parents who funded my course. Okay, cool. So we have a range of different sentences. We have the conditional right here. So we start off with a conditional. And then here we have a complex sentence. So it gives you blah, blah, blah. Okay. We have another complex sentence here. It's a big risk. Nice. So there's a couple of complex sentences. We already have a conditional. So we're doing well with a grammar range. And then here, even better, we have the passive. So it's super important to be able to identify these different structures so you know how to produce them. This example here, this band 6, it's not even a band 6 actually. I think technically it's probably a band 5.5 for grammar accuracy. Vocabulary range is really good. Vocabulary range is maybe an 8. But you can see that actually this paragraph wasn't that bad actually. But this is what happens if you get a band 8 in vocabulary range or lexical range, and you get a band 8 in the topic, and you get a band 8 in, what was the last one? Well, let's just go with, so you can get high grades, but if you don't have those range of sentences, you end up getting probably a 5.5 for grammar range here. So that's going to bring your score down. The score is calculated as the mean average. So if you've got all 8s, you would have 8, 8, 8, so 16, 24, and what is it? 24 plus, I wasn't expecting to do maths in this class, 29.4. No, 29.5, there you go, divided by 4. I'm not sure that's very good maths, is it? 15. Oh yeah, there you go. So you're probably down to a 7.5 overall because you didn't get the grammar range. Hey, I did the maths in the end. Okay, cool. So I have a bit of a challenge for you now. I want you to answer this question. So I want you to answer this question, and I want you to use at least one conditional, minimum one complex sentence. But to be honest, I know you have the abilities to do more than one, and I would like to see maybe 2 or maybe 3 different complex sentences in there. And I would also like to see at least one example of the passive, but probably more really. I mean, I'm not too concerned about the length of this essay, but let's say maximum 250 words. This is the sort of topic they might ask you in the second task of the academic writing. They could also ask this topic actually in the general. Okay, so if you have any questions, of course you can message me on WhatsApp or on Facebook or on Instagram, and I will get back to you. I hope that was clear enough. And yeah, it'd be interesting to know how you get on, and I look forward to reading that paper. Perfect. Good luck.